Today I'm down the Lower Ovens River with my friend Sonny and we're fishing for big Murray cod. Now what are we doing differently to normal to target big Murray cod? Well, we've come downstream where the water's bigger, it's deeper, it's wider, there's more chance that there'll be bigger fish down here, and we're using big lures. So I'm going to show you what lures I'm using today to target big Murray cod. You're right there, just as soon as that cocky calms down a little bit. Shush! Shh! Oh, noisy things, they're right on cue. But anyway, there's a saying in fishing, bigger lures catch bigger fish, and I believe that 100%. But smaller lures will catch big fish occasionally, and bigger lures will also catch small fish. In fact, I've only brought larger lures with me today, and we've caught a few small fish on the larger lures. But I think if I've got a bigger lure on, I'm more likely to entice a bigger fish to come out and strike. So, this is what I've brought with me, and this is what I've been using so far today. That's a #1 stump jumper, the biggest size stump jumper. They're a very popular lure for people targeting larger Murray cod. If you've seen any of the stuff that Rod McKenzie does, Cod Mac, he uses these a lot and he catches a lot of big cod on these. Now this tackle box is going to be pretty tangled, so bear with me. Now I may not have your favourite lures in here. There are literally hundreds of different lures on the market that you can use, but I just went through my collection of lures and I chose what I think will be good to target bigger Murray cod. We'll start off with the smallest one I've got in here, and that's the larger one well lunch. That's the biggest size one well lunch, and I've got a couple of them here, and I've chosen them because they're easy to retrieve, they're great for trolling, and if I get a sore hand, because these big lures, when you're reeling these in, they can actually put a lot of strain on your hand after a while. You get a sore wrist, you get RSI, repetitive strain injury. So these will just give me a break, and they're still quite a reasonable size lure. So I've got two, they're the smallest ones, and they're two one well lunch, the largest one well lunch. This humdinger was made for me by Jake Hodgkin. It's a homemade surface lure. I just like the size, I like that it's wooden jointed lures tend to make a really nice knocking sound on the water. So I've got that in there because it's larger. I've also got, this might be a bit tangled here, I might have to get him out later. I've got a Bassman 4x4 spinnerbait, probably the largest one of the, I don't know, I think they've got bigger now, but for a while that was their largest spinnerbait, the Bassman 4x4. This was custom made for me by Trevor Kay. Trevor's a friend of mine, he's a wonderful, wonderful man. Once again, it's a handmade jointed timber lure. The timber will rattle and make a knocking sound, and it's big. Sonny and I are down in the Lower Ovens River where the water's bigger. It's wider, it's deeper, and I reckon there's more likely to be bigger fish down here than what there is where we normally fish up closer to home. Have a look at this big kahuna. Hang on. It might be tangled. They're all tangled. That is the biggest one well sumo. Look at the size of the thing. That's enormous. I'll put that up there. I've got another one. That's the medium-sized one well sumo. The ones that I usually use when I'm fishing for cod around home are the sumo minis. So they're even smaller than that one. So that's bigger than what I normally use, and that's just ginormous. But like I said, larger lures are designed for catching larger fish. I've got another one well sumo here. That's the same size as that one. So that's the medium size, but they're still quite a large lure. One of my all-time favourite topwater lures, the Koolabung cod cracker. Once again, the jointed timber, makes a knocking sound. I've caught a few fish on that on my channel. The last one I got on that was only a couple of months ago. I'll bring them both up. Another #1 stump jumper. The paint job isn't all that great on there. And another 4x4 Bassman spinnerbait. Another 4x4 Bassman spinnerbait. Another #1 stump jumper. That's the limited edition fishing monthly one. And this is really cool. In fact, I reckon this is probably what I will go to today. That is, if I don't lose it. That is the Pitbull lures, made by Les at Pitbull Lures. Pitbull bitter critter, and it's got those flaps out the side. And it makes a wonderful noise on the water, like a bloop, 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 bloop. And I reckon that I'm probably going to start with that tonight when I switch to a surface lure. And then there's just a couple of skirts that have fallen off spinnerbaits. they're easy enough to put back on. So folks, there's a lot of different lures out there on the market for targeting bigger cod. If you're fishing for bigger cod, you want to be using bigger lures. As we've found out today, and sort of already knew anyway, these bigger lures will still catch smaller fish. No worries about that. But I just think that larger lures are more likely to entice bigger fish out. And there's lures on the market that are much bigger than these, but something worth remembering, if you're going to cast some of these big lures, because they put these ones in particular, the number one stump jumper, they push a lot of water, so you really want a firm, stiff rod. This is a graphite composite Venom 6 kilogram bait caster. Any kind of fiberglass rod, they're normally a lot cheaper and stronger, but they're not great for this sort of work because it is too floppy and you'll feel like you're fighting fish all day. And a lighter rod's the same. Even a graphite rod, a lighter rod, it'll just bend too much under the force of the lure. So you want a nice firm rod and some heavy line to cast big lures around. Anyway, I just wanted to stop and show you what I'm using today. Bigger lures catch bigger fish. So far all we've caught is smaller fish, but I'm happy just catching them. Let's go and see if we can catch more smaller fish or hopefully a bigger fish.